Today's edition of Hood News, I want to address anger management. Now, this comes on the tails of a story that happened recently in Florida where a 19-year-old troubled man went off. He killed 17 people at his school and he wounded several others. And they said that he had mental issues and he had been receiving treatment at a mental health facility, and that he had lost a lot of people who were very close to him to death in his life. And so, not necessarily murder, but people had passed away that were close to him, and he felt, a certain way about that. And the bottom line is that this person went to school angry and decided to lash out at others because of his own inner turmoil. And as a result, today 17 people are dead. So I want to talk about anger management. Now, many of you know that I live in an assisted living facility. And what that simply means, and I got here, how did I get here? Well, let me just give you a brief background on how things work in New York City when you're homeless. If you're homeless and you're within the shelter system, we have something called DHS, which is the Department of Homeless Services, and they do an interview via the shelter that puts you in a certain classification. So based on your answers to the different questions in this little survey, they determine what level of housing they should target you for, because there are different types of places that cater to the homeless. Now, one thing you should know is that in New York, the homeless are considered mentally ill. People who are homeless, especially if they are repetitive homeless and they wind up in the system, they're considered crazy, because the assumption is that if you can't keep a roof over your head, then something must be wrong with you. They don't take into account the economy or other factors that may cause you to be that way, but the general consensus, especially among the homeless population without families, those who are single, is that there is some mental issue. So long story short, they have these levels of housing. Some provide more closer monitoring than others, and then you have some that you're pretty independent, except that you may be assigned a case manager or someone who is there to oversee your progress and check in on you and so forth. So the one that I live in caters to the homeless population. A lot of people who come out of the prison system and they wind up homeless because they no longer can live with their families or what have you. And then you have others who come out of the mental hospitals, and then you have others who we have a demographic here of seniors, and sometimes people fall in several categories. So the reason that I mention this is that in this type of and most of these places are usually nonprofit organizations, so they have bylaws and certain criteria that they too must meet. And I believe in their mission statement, the one that I live in, they also hire people who have emotional problems and so forth, because they're trying to reintroduce these people into the workplace. And so they give them jobs so that they can feel independent. But these people have issues. And the problem I see with people who have issues is that they don't know they have an issue if it's part of their everyday norm. So you've got people who are lashing out, like this young man in Florida. He didn't realize, I'm sure, at no point when he was killing people did he realize that he had an issue. He felt, I'm sure, justified in his behavior. And so my feeling about that is that that's a hard nut to crack, for lack of a better euphemism or a better analogy. If a person doesn't know they're ill, even if they're showing up every day at a mental health facility, then their behavior is going to reflect what they think in their mind is correct and the right way to go about things. So for those of you, I like to think of anger as an approaching storm. Or sometimes those of you who drive, you could be on the road and you'll see signs that indicate that you are approaching danger or danger ahead. Because anger has to build. It builds up to a certain peak before it actually explodes. So a lot of us see it coming. And for those of us who are on the end of the aggressor, who are the one who is getting angry, we can feel it rising and building. And in a place, and it doesn't have to be a place that there's a bunch of sick people running around either, because you can live in a high rise and there can be some sick individuals there as well. But I use my place because there is an abundance of angry people. And even though in my environment within my home, I'm very happy. As you can see, one of the first purchases I made over here on the wall here is this painting, which says, "This is my happy place." Because I was determined, no matter what awaited me when I moved in here, I was going to make this, the inside of my domain, a happy place. And it is indeed happy. I'm very happy inside. But when I go to the other side of that door, when I go outside the door, I then encounter some of the most miserable and unhappy with life people who just, they want to lash out at others. They don't even internalize what's going on with them because they are angry with the world. Even though they have a roof over their head and they're eating well, they're eating every day, and they have so much to be grateful for, they still have this anger for maybe something that happened 50 years ago. They had a miserable life. One staff member here, from the day she got here, she determined that I was her enemy. Now, forget all the other fellow tenants that I have to deal with, men who I don't want, and or I reject their advances, and also women who have some type of jealousy. I don't know why, but you know, the gamut of different types of psychological problems run throughout the building. And so there are a lot of angry people here. But now I also have to deal with staff who have anger issues. So this one in particular woman, she's very angry. She's been mad with me since she got here. I even asked her one day, I said, "Excuse me, Olga, what did I ever do to you?" And she didn't have an answer. Her answer to me was, "I'm busy." Okay, you know, you're busy, but really? And so, you know, what I'm saying to you is that the easy response is to lash back at people. And when you have people who work in a work environment where they're expected to treat you a certain way, but they come at you, it's a hard call, because I'm reminded of 2 Timothy 4:16, where it says, "At my first defense, no one came to my support. Everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them." That is hard. It's hard for you to forgive people who have turned against you for no cause, and just choose to not only have they treated you poorly, but they've now engaged others. And so she has engaged another staff member, this woman named Ivy, who also works in the same capacity, and they have teamed up in their anger towards me. Neither one of them have any reason to be angry with me, but they have decided that they're going to lash out at me. And it's probably because of the other tenants who actually do give them a hard time, but they're defenseless against them, because it's like the lion and the kitten. So you go after the weaker animal because you feel like you have a better chance of getting your prey. And the thing about it is that the word teaches us, and a lot of us who are victims of people's aggression and anger, we forget the one key component, and that's found in Ephesians 6:12, which states clearly that our fight is not with flesh and blood. That's something you've got to remember, but it's against rulers, it's against authorities, and it's against the powers of this dark world, and against those wickedness in high places. So when you're in a work environment, you have some people who at work, they're actually pretty nice because they're getting paid. So that's their incentive. So you can walk in, and this same person who yells at the kids, kicks the dog, takes a leak in the fish tank, and whatever they do within their home environment to lash out. But at work, you see them, oh, hello, welcome to Walmart. How may I help you? And but behind there is a seething, raging person who is seeking a way and can't wait to get off work so they can lash out. They're probably even angry at their employer, but because they need the job, they suppress it until they get somewhere where they can release it. And this is the anger. And so what I want to talk even more about is controlling our own anger, we as Christians, because the same way you have people who go to work and they're able to suppress their anger at work, so you would never know. This is why when people do things, you have other people who know them from a different structure, and they'll say, oh my goodness, I can't believe she did that, because she was just so nice. Yes, it was an act. And many people are very good at putting on a different face in a different environment. And you have some of us Christians who go to church and we're like, oh, praise the Lord. And hey, sister, so and so and so. But then we gossip and talk about the person. And they had a song once called The Backstabbers. And these are the people who'll stab you in the back. In front of your face, they're all, smiles and good wishes. And some of them even talk about pastor. It's no filter, because these are angry people who just want to spread this, spread sadness. And the thing is that, like I said, according to Ephesians, it's not even them, but they are being used by the enemy in order to fulfill his agenda. In fact, a lot of them, they target God's people. They target us because they want to break us. Once you realize that you're being targeted to be broken, then you can deal with it differently. Because if we keep thinking like the world, one thing that happens when the Lord delivers us from something, he says, come out from among thee. So we are separated. We're no longer part of the world. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. So when we come out from among them, we're supposed to act a different way. Romans 12:21, it tells us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And that's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. No one said this walk was easy. It's not an easy walk. It's a very hard walk. And in order to do it, we've got to be right within. If we're holding anger and we've got people we haven't spoke to in years and so forth, and every time somebody says something to us that's negative, we want to go one better. Oh, your mama, or your, and this, that, and back and forth. Then we're not living a God life, because we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to overcome evil with good. We've got to learn, when people curse us, we got to say, God bless you, sister. God bless you, brother. You've got people in relationships where one of the partners is angry, mean as a snake, and the other person either tolerates it or they let it build to a crescendo, and then they unleash it one day, and it's to the detriment of everyone, including the children. It's better sometimes to leave a situation, because you can't fix somebody. Those of you who marry people and think, well, I'm going to fix him or I'm going to fix her. No, that doesn't happen. You got to let God fix them and then marry them. I learned that the hard way. My husband, Benjamin, rests the dead. He was an angry person. He beat me up before we got married. He tried to throw me out of a window, but I was too fat for him to pick up. So thankfully, I didn't get out the window because he couldn't lift me. But while he was doing it and I was screaming, there were people below, and you'll find this too. There are agitators. There are people who just like to see something go down. They can't wait to see a fight. That's why you have sites like World Star and all these other sites where they got all this buffoonery and people acting up because people tune in. They want to see this, you know. And World Star, not the only one. Media Takeout, all of them. Any type of buffoonery or ignorance they will promote, and it gets more hits than anything good. On my Facebook for Black History Month, I posted every conceivable good deed that Black people have ever done, and you would be amazed at how few shares these things got. And I have over my 5,000 friend limit. I have almost 5,000 followers on my page. And I say that only to say that you would think some of this good stuff would have thousands of shares. No, I don't think not even one of them had 100 shares. Because people don't want to hear that. They'd rather share some ignorant buffoonery than to share some good positive deeds that we have done as people. So my point is you have to steer clear of the instigators. They're looking to get something started. You have people. I remember when I was in high school, there was a girl, she said, cheer me on. Anytime I had a dispute with somebody, she'd be like, you should kick her, you know. And I think to myself, yes, I should. But had this person not been cheering me on, I might have thought a different way. Even though I wasn't a God-fearing person at that time, I was a troublemaker to a certain degree because I had anger issues because them foster homes, those people used to beat my ass. So yes, I said ass. And then as a result, I'd go out into the world and want to see who I could beat up, you know? So that's the other thing too. If you're in a household where the parents are angry and fighting and everything your kid do, he gets smacked upside the head, or everything your child do, she gets sent to her room and no dinner. And I've had all that. I had people who wouldn't feed me. And I think that to this day, that's why I'm so greedy, because I'm afraid I'm never going to have enough food. I mean, things that happen to you in childhood, although now I'm working on that and I've changed my thinking, and the Bible speaks about that. You have to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So everything that happened to you in your childhood, you have to acknowledge that that's just what it is. Your past is just that, your past. Now, I heard from someone here where I live that the woman, the main woman who is angry with me, she has shared with a co-worker. I didn't ask for this information, but it was shared with me that this woman had a horrible childhood and that she's very angry, and she says the reason she's the way she is mean is because she can't get over things that happened to her in her past. If you cannot get over things that have happened in your past, how do you expect to move forward in your future? You can't, because you're still living in the past. So your feet are stuck in the cement of all the muck and garbage that you had to put up with in your past. You can't seem to lift your foot up out of that. You just are determined to stay there, and you want everyone to feel your pain. And some of you walk around with a sense of entitlement. You think that the world owes you something because of what you went through. The world does not owe us anything. If anything, we should be thanking God that we are still here and we have an opportunity to make right the things that went wrong. I can't change none of that stuff that happened to me. I can't be unmolested. It happened. It was what it was. I was a child. I was defenseless. The person who did what they did, that's on them. They're the one who has to answer to God for what they did to me. But what I have to do is move on and thank God that I grew into the woman that I am able to fulfill my destiny, because we all have a destiny. We all have an assignment. Some of you just don't know what it is. Everybody doesn't have the same assignment. My assignment may not be your assignment, but we do have one. And when we draw nigh unto thee and we become close to God, then we are able to then fulfill our purpose here in life. And I can tell you, there's a peace that comes about from being able to fill our purpose in life that is like no other. It is a peace without measure when you are able to wake up every day and thank God. And I'm going to bring you back to the word Deuteronomy 8:2. It says, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness for these 40 years, or how many of the years, but the word says 40, to humble and to test you in order to know what was in your heart and whether or not you would keep his commands. So those of us who have been, how many of you out there, just, I can't see your hands, but I'm sure a lot of you, like me, have been led through the wilderness. Sleeping on the subway, that's the wilderness for real. Okay, it may not be going through the trees and the bushes and the mud and crossing lakes and all that the older time people traveled, but there is still a wilderness in this life. So whenever we are delivered from something, the first thing we should think of is glory to God that I have been delivered. People who have come through the wilderness should never be angry. We should be praising God all day, every day, because that's a heck of a thing. And not everybody is brought through. Some people die in the wilderness. There are people who can't make it. They're not strong enough. So if you have been strong enough and God gave you the strength and the perseverance to come out through the wilderness, then you should be grateful. You should be praising him every day, all day. There should be no anger. There was a saying, too blessed to be stressed. And that's how a lot of us need to have our minds. That, Lord, look what you've given me. You've given me a beautiful home. You've given me nice, beautiful clothing. I have my hair done every day. I've got my little fake jewelry and stuff that I can put on and feel good and go out and spread positive energy and positive messages. I can tell you, I was walking down the street one day and I saw this girl. She had on these big earrings and it said bitch. And I looked at her and she smiled. And I said, well, surprise, surprise, the bitch smiles. And, you know, when you're old, sometimes you feel like you can just say any old thing because you're old and ain't nobody going to pay you no mind. But also, in my case, I say things sometimes just to provoke a reaction because I sometimes, and this was a young girl, I sometimes can gauge whether or not the person will take the bait and give me an opportunity to minister. So I did say the word bitch because that's what the earring said. But when she smiled, I realized that she's not what she's advertising. So why would she wear this? And then when she heard me say that, she looked at me and she's like, I'm a nice person. I said, then why would you wear them tacky earrings? I said, I said, would you go on a job interview with those? And she's like, of course not. I says, but how do you know how many potential employers might be passing you by on a daily basis, just in walking, and see those earrings and decide, oh no, I couldn't have her working for me. You know, there are people that can see you that you don't see them. But then in another environment, they are thinking, I know her from somewhere. And then it clicks. Oh no, that's that girl that had on them earrings. Oh hell no, she can't come up here and work with me. You know, because they don't know. You might decide to wear them to work one day. So my point is that we are, especially Christians, we need to represent who we are. I went to a church once, I'll never forget it, and after the service, these people, they must have had some kind of beef before the service. Well, after the service, they was outside fighting right there in the church parking lot. I couldn't believe it. I said, people of God out here fighting. And it's not funny. It's shameful. Because we're supposed to be in our walk 24/7. And as a result, we also cannot allow the enemy to use people to provoke us to be other than what we are, which are God-fearing, Christian, Christ-like people. Galatians 6:10. It tells us, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. It don't say just to Christian people, to all people, even those who we think don't deserve it. We should be good, and especially to the family of believers. So the way we act with each other, it shouldn't be we sitting there choosing who we gonna be nice to. Do you know that rude people don't even know they're rude? You've got people, this is my assessment of angry people. You've got people who are angry all day, every day, because they feel they need to be in control. A lot of you know about my neighbor I told you about who stays on my case. And I finally realized, one thing he said that made me realize the root of all his issues. He said to me one time in an argument, "I'm going to make you respect me." Now, you can't make anybody do anything. Even if they do it begrudgingly just to get you out of their face, they're still in the inside. They don't respect you. They just did it or said whatever they said to get you away from them. And people like that are very scary because, the ones, I used to manage a rapper named KRS-One, and he's my good friend to this day. He's a true gentleman and a really genuinely nice guy. And one thing he said on one of his songs that I never forgot, he said, "Real bad boys move in silence." You've got people out there who are silent, who will take a bunch of stuff and they will internalize it, but they are just building up to that day when they're going to unleash that anger. And woe be to whoever's in their path. So what I'm saying to you is that by reacting, because with every action, we have a choice of our reaction. So if this angry person says something to you, we have the opportunity, that is the opportunity right there, to address how we're going to choose to deal with it, what our reaction will be. This is why it's good sometimes to pause. A lot of our devices, it has a pause button. And via this button, you can stop. Like right now, I'm recording. I could hit the pause button and think about what I'm going to say next. Some of you need a pause button in your life. You need to hit pause and think about what it is that you're going to do or say next. Because there are certain things that anger can bring about from which there is no return. I have said this in other videos. The prisons are filled with people who wish they had handled a situation differently. And now they're in a situation themselves for which there is no way out. Acts 10:38 tells us that God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and power. And they say how he went around doing good and healing all who were under the power of the devil, because God was with him. Now, you're not going to be able to heal everybody, even with your good deeds, even with being kind. And some people you have to simply flee from, because they are so rooted in their wickedness that nothing you say or do is going to change them, because they don't want to be changed. And when you realize that, this is why the word also talks about throwing pearls among swine. It's pointless. They don't even recognize the gift they're being given. So you can't help people. This is why I said earlier in the video that some of you marry these wicked mates and then you wonder why every day your life is hell. Because you knew what you was getting. You married them knowing that they were hell. Like I said, my ex-husband, he held me out of a window and tried to throw me out way before we got married. And what did I do? I turned around and married him. And, I was young, but that's not an excuse, because young ladies and young men, you've got to know, A, what you are looking for. Some of you are only looking for someone to go to bed with every night, for a steady partner. and you don't care what it comes with. No, oh my goodness. When I was in the world and after I had learned things about relationships and about needs, because that's what it boils down to. A lot of stuff we think we need, we don't need. But I told a friend once, I said, you know what? I don't need a man sexually if if that what he's given me is attached to an idiot. And I put it a little differently. But as a Christian woman, I'm saying, first of all, number one, those of us who profess to be Christians shouldn't be out there fornicating anyway. But if we do marry, we should marry for righteous reasons, not because the sex is good. Because if that's all they have to offer, they can keep it. I don't want a husband that makes me feel good in bed, but the other 99% of the time I have to put up with his mess. And I'm sure don't nobody want to put up with my mess. And this is why I have to work on myself every day to be the woman of God that I am. I have to work on this every day. It's not easy. The Christian walk is not easy. Do not be misled. But it's not impossible. It just takes work and discipline. So when people rub you the wrong way, you've got to remember what Ephesians 4:26 says. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And what I'm saying to you folks, saints and unsaints alike, is that if you're angry this morning, then you got all day to get rid of it. Because the words say, do not let it go down on your anger. That boy that killed them kids and teachers, he killed a coach, you know, he probably went to sleep at night angry. And every day he woke up, if people use the expression, I'm going to sleep on it. No, no, no. Because when you sleep on it, when you wake up, it's still there. You've got to get rid of it while you are woke so that when you go to sleep, it's gone. And you wake up fresh and renewed. And you're looking forward to what's next in your life, how you can get closer to your assignment, to your destiny. Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Those of you who profess to be good, godly people, you have got to let your light shine. When we receive the Holy Spirit and we profess ourselves to be people of God, there should be an inner light that people shouldn't have to look for. Nobody has to come up and ask me, are you a woman of God? Because my walk reflects who I am. When I am able to still smile at the person who I know hates me, that's the God in me. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we are able to bring others to Christ by the way we behave. One of the reasons, and I've said this before, that we can't get young people in particular into the church is because they see how church folk act. I'm sure there were young people who might have come to that church that day for the first time, and when they walked outside and saw them Christians fighting in the parking lot, they probably never returned. Because in their mind, they were probably thinking, well, heck, this is how the world act. I don't need to be here. I could stay home and see a fight. So I'm saying to you people that we, as people of God, we've got to transform our thinking because we're losing more and more souls to the enemy. That boy that killed those 17 people, his soul is lost forever. Sure, he can find forgiveness in this lifetime, but it'll be behind bars. And if he's in a state where the death penalty is, he may very well go to his end without ever receiving Christ, without ever having the opportunity to know God. because he allowed the enemy to use him to his detriment. So I'm going to close here, but I felt this was very important. You know, there used to be a song back in the day called I Said I Wasn't Going to Tell Nobody, but I Couldn't Keep It to Myself. And that's how I feel this morning. I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. So people, just remember to use discernment. We all have it. It's just a matter of deciding if we're going to use it. Hence ends today's lesson on anger management. I love you. God bless the reading of his word, and God bless the hearers of his word. Amen.